will be assured that we are taking each and every care. And we are always in touch with the students. Now, right now, the few students are staying in the hostels. We are talking with
Right.
them, and they will send the message to other how we are taking their care. That will give the message to all the students what we are doing, how our campus is set. Even whatever way we are trying, always we talk, deliberate. Even as a vice chancellor, also I go to the hostel, I talk with the students and try to know exactly what is there in mind. If somebody outsider is coming in campus, they will be, because government is now asking hostels that police will come and stay. So
Right.
what kind of arrangements we are making and all these things we are telling to the students in confidence, and they are very cooperative. The way in which we are dealing, they are very cooperative. Now you are
Mhm.
saying in education system things will previously, at least the things never used to change very fast. I can, through
Yes,
my
sir.
own example,
Yes, sir.
I was in MSc, Master of Science in 74 to 76. That time one professor came, and whatever method was adopted only for our chemistry department, only one department.
I
Entirely,
see.
it was 100, you say almost everything was internal. No examination. Throughout the year, the examination were planned. Teacher will assess, they will give assessed answer books. It was a totally transparent system. Everybody will. But that teacher, within 2 years, all the teachers revolted, and it cannot be implemented. And now UGC has come out with all mandates where we are talking about the things which was done for our batch in 1974-76. So
Yes,
things,
sir. But how difficult will this be to implement across all the colleges? I mean, the bigger colleges might be able to do it, but what about the smaller colleges?
yeah,
Does it
exactly.
incur costs and
See, right now we had several meetings with the technocrats. See, right now, first problem with us is how we are going to conduct examination and CET. Our students are pan India. They are back at home, and immediately for coming to the examination will be difficult for them to coming to the Pune and whatever exam way we used to conduct. Now we are
right?
looking for that one is online, but entire we can't test only through online because it was not
Exactly.
throughout the year. So what we are saying, we are asking the technocrats or the companies which are coming to us whether we can have the exam from home. And from
Okay.
home examination, the technology is like this. They have, some of them have presented. If the student do something, if they could use some other gadget, immediately we'll know. Or somebody is dictating, we will know. And even there is a only thing, in some cases they are giving only objective, but we are would like to have to test their some other knowledge where the descriptive questions. There are some technologies where special kind of laptops should be provided to the students where they can write. Because some of the students, what you have said, you are asked a very pertinent question. 30% students from particularly from arts, commerce side, they will say we don't have anything. Even
Exactly, sir.
even on smartphones, we ask the technology people, the technology companies, whether we can have something on the with help of smartphone. They are saying no, smartphones are not safe. So they have to
Uh-huh.
use the laptop, they have to use the webcam, and that's why
Right.
we are facing all the problems. And right now, everything we have to use a blended model.
Maybe, perhaps,
Blended
you
model.
could think in terms of a cell phone or something. That might be an
Yes,
easier way
but
to
cell
do it.
phone is not safe. Whatever discussions we had,
Right.
last week we had several meetings, but they are
Uh-huh.
not safe. And that's
I
why,
see.
yeah, that's why we are
Great, sir.
facing a lot
Great.
of problems. So we have
Right.
to go for blended mode. The students who are in position to give online exam, that will be one group, and for other group we have to give other thought.
Very interesting way to look at it, sir. I think I'll come
Yeah,
back to you on that a bit
blending.
later.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
Mr. Jingan, you know, I was concerned about something else, which is that what happens to students who have already received offer letters from various firms, but are now worried about rejections? I mean, is that a valid fear, or is that something that students shouldn't worry about?
Well, it is definitely a valid concern. I think with all of the uncertainty that we are seeing in the external environment. Companies, recruiters, employers are all getting impacted, by this. So I think it is most definitely a concern that most students have and should have. What I think we are seeing, and Ernst & Young being a large employer, ourselves, I think what we are generally seeing is two or three things. One, from a sectoral standpoint, sectors like IT services, professional services, consulting, some of the very large corporates. These are sectors or segments that are perhaps, less impacted, or perhaps are, facing less short-term impact. And the general consensus across these segments and employers in these segments is that they are all, going ahead and, onboarding students who have already been received offers, as part of the campus placement process. I think, there is obviously a section of, I guess, the employer community that is, perhaps deferring start dates. So, I have heard of a lot of larger companies just simply pushing back, start dates to perhaps 1st September or 1st October, or, by a few months to allow the businesses to settle down. So that's the second thing. As I said earlier, I think from a sector standpoint, sectors like IT, professional services, etc., are perhaps not as heavily impacted as many other sectors, like perhaps hospitality, travel, tourism, a lot of parts of retail. And therefore, I think, even in the medium term, I would imagine, once, the companies, businesses get through this disruption, they should be, back on some kind of a normal trajectory. However, the thing to watch out for would be in these companies that are perhaps, even in these sectors, which are very heavily dependent on travel, tourism, and whatnot as customers. So, as you know, a lot of IT companies serve airlines, hotels, online travel portals and whatnot. So they will obviously feel some brunt, but hopefully sort of a big impact on their portfolio. I think where probably the impact will be felt the most would be slightly smaller, more mid-sized companies, which are perhaps, in the front end, client-facing segments, parts of financial services, especially the retail side, travel, tourism, logistics. Those are the businesses that will perhaps face the greatest brunt of it, and those are the businesses, in my mind, that are most likely to ask for maybe even reconsider offers or perhaps push offers out by there. So I think there is going to be some impact, not a lot. But obviously, it is something that I think universities and students would have to watch very closely.
Okay, so there's some impact, but you're saying it's not something that is going to be a huge impact kind of a thing. So, Mr. Yadav, you have handled thousands and thousands of students in terms of placements and things like that. And, various large companies have pledged to honor their offer letters, saying that, no, we will not, rescind on them. But with caveats, of course, like delayed joining and all that due to the pandemic, or maybe online training and onboarding, things like that. But do you think they'll be able to honor those commitments if this pandemic continues longer than expected?
Yeah. So first of all, good afternoon to everybody. Yes, due to this COVID-19, such kind of scenario has come, but then we'll have to examine country-wise and sector-wise, as Amitabh said, So there are certain sectors which may not honor maybe about 10 to 15%, but they will honor about anything between 90 to 100%. Which are those sectors are there, Those sectors are IT services, IT services. There is going to be a big demand in India after this COVID-19 for the IT. So our IT company, which was working in maybe in USA or in UK, though they need to now really give importance to the Indian requirement, because now that most of the Indian company, they have come to understand this, that there is a huge requirement of IT infrastructure in order to do the business in India. So IT company, IT services company, media company, pharmaceutical company, retail company, essential services company, hospital. These are the company which I think will completely honor. They will not honor. It's just that the first quarter is on hold. But there are certain industry may differ or may decline, which time will say. Those industry like you I think most of us we know. Tourism industry is there, aeroplane industry is there. All the hotels are there. These are industry which has really suffered. So it all depends upon the when it will open. If it opens, let's say by June or July, then I think honor is almost about 90 to 95%. But if it gets postponed further, then maybe the decline will be at least 30%.
Well, okay. Thank you so much. That's interesting. Dr. Salunke, I'll come back to you, sir. Would you agree with the statement that placement prospects of top business and engineering colleges are not going to be affected much, but in other colleges, they might be impacted to a much larger extent? For instance, the IITs and IIMs and those places, perhaps the placement thing, because there are some already commitments made by the employers. But what happens to the other smaller colleges?
Yeah, this is one of the serious issue for us. Already we are not in position to give the placements for arts, even some commerce students, as well as maybe we are giving the placements to the management students, engineering students. However, it's very difficult to give the placement for such type of courses. Unless now the buzzword will be how we are going to inculcate entrepreneurship among the students so they will adapt the change fast. And for that particular purpose, we are giving a thought whether we can provide some online short courses to them. Even after getting the degree, they should go some sort of training so they will be more entrepreneur type of things, because job situation, whatever industry is saying, when the economy will grow with 1% or 0%, somebody says 0 or below 0 they are talking about, then jobs will not be there. And particularly regional language students will face more problems. We have the teaching in regional language, and the students are not exposed to what is happening in other languages, or they don't know how to express. So there we may face real problems, and everybody would like to go for a job which is class 4 type of job. They are more interested, and that type of students is going to create, and it will be a social problem. It is a psychological problem, and all sort of problems will be there. But with this, definitely there will be change in our system, education system. Now we'll have the even blended mode. Instead of saying that everybody should come to the college, we'll say go to the industry, try to learn something. Previously we used to do as a coursework, as a case study, something. But now this is an opportunity for all the institutes to tell the students to go more in the society industry where they will get real experience. Now with our digital learning, more problem will start. Because previously students, we used to learn in classroom, but outside classroom was very important. They are used to stay in the hostel. They used to sit together. They used to debate, discuss. That kind of thing will be less.
That's an interesting point that you're making. I mean, that's a very interesting point that you're making. Let me take that question to Mr. Jingan. Mr. Jingan, a lot of people, for instance, I mean, Dr. Salunke was talking about internships and other things which might help them sort of adapt to a, corporate environment or whatever it is that you're getting into. But now even internships are being withdrawn because of, travel and other restrictions. So where do you see that headed?
Yeah, so I mean, I think clearly, there is a challenge with internships. I think, depending again on sector and industry, there are at least, programs, or there are some segments of industry. So consulting is an easy one. We are actually providing almost the equivalent of a virtual internship program or a virtual internship opportunity to students. However, it's hard to do. But I think yes, internships would perhaps see a much greater impact. Partly because it's hard to do offline or without physical contact, and partly because some of these internship programs or offers are getting pushed out to later in the year, which is conflicting and clashing with the academic cycle. So I think there will be definitely impact. However, I think that is also an opportunity, and I think just to build on Dr. Salunke's point, I feel that in this current scenario, any scenario you look at, whether we even restart in July, whether it gets pushed out to say October, November, I think most universities will have to think about almost a curriculum around internships, because as somebody who receives interns from universities, I can tell you that the biggest challenge around this is that there is no curriculum or program. It's dependent a lot on the processes of the receiving organization, and therefore it boils down to physical contact. And I think with physical contact being less, and I think that's a given, right? Under any scenario, we all have to factor in a reduced level of contact. I mean, I think it's quite natural that most companies and most internship providers may not be able to provide the same level of physical contact to students as they were in the past. And therefore, I think universities, faculty, perhaps even mentors who are alumni of the university working in industry in those sectors would have to come together and create a little bit of a program and define very clear learning goals, learning objectives that each of these students would need to have as part of their internship, for it to be less problematic for corporation or for industry to continue with, and B, for it to be effective and deliver some learning outcomes for the learners. So I think there is going to be definitely a need for us to reinvent or reimagine how we run these internships. The days of just connecting students with companies and saying, okay, this is now your internship opportunity is probably limited because of the physical constraints. So my sense is that that would be another dimension that we should think of. Although there will be a definite reduction, perhaps in the number of internship opportunities available, which again we'll have to solve.
I think Dr. Salunke wants to make a point. I think he was trying to say something. You were trying to.
I would like to tell about one interesting model we had when I was Vice Chancellor of Yeshwantrao Chauhan Maharashtra Open University. The Lupin would like to recruit the candidates. After 12, the candidates were selected, and they are pursuing the BSc while doing job in their industry. And all practicals were performed in the Lupin, and they are sure about, in first year they used to give the scholarships 8,000 per month, second year 10,000, and 12,000 last year BSc. And with this internship, we used to do online teaching, and they used to get degree and confirmed job. This is a very interesting model regarding the internship. That was the point. I thought that it is a very interesting model, which was industry academia collaboration, and the students are placed. Such type of things we should give some thought.
Okay. Mr. Yadav, I had a question for you. So far, we've been discussing, placements for the current sort of year. What happens to the next batch? Do you see an uptick in recruitments then? Or do you think the economic situation will actually cause to fewer students being hired in the next session?
Okay, so let me give you a case study. I have a client which is in the retail business, and they sell multi-brand, and they already have around 2,500 retail outlets across the country. This year, they have been selling only the essentials items. With that, they are managing the business at the moment because they can't sell the other product, non-essential item, they can't sell. But throughout the 2,500 outlets, they are selling essential item. They already have a plan for the next year, that is 21-22, to double this number of outlets, So the point is, that this year, the Indian economy will grow maybe by, I think, anything between 1.5 to 2.5%. Different people have different kind of opinion, but I feel that it would be anything between 1.5 to 2.5% economy it will grow. So this year, most of the company, they would like to survive. They would like to manage the business the way it is, But the next year, every company will have a plan, a bigger plan next year. So I'm extremely hopeful in the next year there will be huge requirement for the engineers, for the MBAs, and for the graduates. Even in our plan as a company, we have around 52,000 people, which works with about 475 companies. And I feel the next year when we start, our growth will be at least 30 to 35% next year. We are planning ahead in terms of, so that's the kind of requirement. So next year, I'm extremely optimistic that, there will be a huge requirement because the entire society will be very hunger. Imagine today, for the last 3 months, all the people have just bought essentials items. They have not bought, any textiles, shoes, any entertainment items. So these are all lying latent at the moment. The moment the market opens, people will like to buy. But obviously, this year they have a less disposable income, so they may not buy. They may differ. But when the next year, when the money will come to the hand, this disposable income will be spent in huge, and that's where the larger number of placement will take place next year.
That's a positive kind of outlook that you have. I'm sure people will be very glad to hear that. But I'll ask Mr. Jingan the next question. That what role can top industry bodies like, let's say, FICCI or CII or ASSOCHAM or even NASSCOM, what role can they play in sort of alleviating this problem?
I think they can play. I think all of these bodies can, and to some degree, possibly are also already doing so. But I think they can play a reasonably significant role. I sit on the higher education committee at FICCI, and I'm obviously privy to some of the discussions and initiatives that are being planned. And I must say they're all very focused on this. They see this as a real problem. I think the industry bodies could perhaps do 2 or 3 things. One, they could perhaps act as much more they could act as almost intermediaries, but perhaps facilitative intermediaries around trying to create frameworks that would need to be developed for around the whole skills part of it. So I think we all realize that students in this in the new normal would need to perhaps, or businesses are working differently. I think the point Mr. Yadav and Dr. Salunke made. So I think industry bodies could play a great role in just defining perhaps what could be some changes, modifications, alterations, additions that need to be made to the skill frameworks or the skills that student needs to work on, and how that could perhaps be delivered effectively. So they could facilitate some of those discussions, conversations, dialogues. I think the second area where they could perhaps step in is I think to perhaps to try and take provide greater support around outreach that some of these institutions have. I think the reality is that many institutions will need to perhaps look beyond just the top or the large recruiters, because I think there may be greater competition, there may be some reduction of softness in numbers and whatnot. So I think many universities, many educational institutions will need to expand just the universe of employers that they reach out to. And given limited time and resources, I think that is something that I would imagine again these industry bodies can help. They are present in virtually every state. They have large sector bodies and whatnot. So a little bit of that access could perhaps be provided by these bodies. And then third could be also they could also be I think effective platforms through which almost a more where through which some amount of regulatory and government policy could be influenced or impacted. I mean, I think the reality is that there is perhaps some role for or some relevance of a more balanced regulatory framework that would apply in the medium term. So I don't think it can really much can be done in the next 30 days, 40 days, 60 days. But I think if there is a sort of scenario planning,
so in the long term, you're seeing some kind of thing coming. I think Mr. Yadav,
things like online, regulatory.
I think Mr. Yadav wanted to make a point.
Yeah,
Yes.
see, I'm quite closely associated with the association called Indian Staffing Federation, as well as also with the CII
Uh-huh.
and Merchant Chamber of Commerce. See, there are saying now कि पहले chicken आएगा कि अंडा आएगा, which one will come first. So we have to look at from industry angle also and from the institution angles, and that is where the collaboration takes place. So industry, all the association has played extremely important role in this COVID-19, because let's look at a CII. Right, today we have got about first instance we got 1.75 lakhs crores of uh, from the government, and second instance they give 1 lakh. So one is the direct subsidy, which is for the poor people, which the government has given, and the various things to the various companies in terms of PF, the dollar of loan of about 90% or 3 months, whichever is lower or higher. And secondly, less than 100 employee, anybody have got PF, you don't need to give. Then interest subsidy. But what Bangladesh has done, a small country, I do not know how come India has not. In Bangladesh, what they have done, they have given 3 months. They have said that 3 months salary we will give directly to all the people. And those 3 months salary which we'll give, that will debit to the employer, and will take them as an EMI in next 1 year.
But are you talking about the private sector across the board, or are you talking about the government sector?
Across the board. Across the board, this is the Bangladesh has done. So, however, India has just spent 0.8% of the GDP in terms of 1.75 lakh crore and 1 lakh crore with their. We were expecting anything around 2% to spend of the GDP in this COVID-19. So, and that too has come maybe the role which CII and whether various association has played. So there is a tremendous role which is being played, and because of that we are getting so much of benefits today in the society. So that once this is done, the demand will come, and that demand will push to get the students a job into the various business and industries.
Great. Dr. Salunke, I'll come back to the question I was sort of, indirectly also asking Mr. Chingan, is that apart from the industry bodies, now obviously the government is putting in a lot of money to sort of stimulate the economy. But do you think the government should actively get involved in forcing companies to hire, and even if they could, should it?
Okay, I will talk this in larger perspective. What kind of things government should do for education sector? One of the things, they should try to change the regulations. Right now, all the regulators are very rigid, and they only talk about so many years the student has to spend. So now the students are not in position to spend 4 years for engineering program, 3 years. Somebody would like to get the same degree in 2 years. And to give the equivalence and all these things, even for the jobs, internships, government can play a very important role. There is a very nice paper published in Current Science. There are 3 factors: university industry interaction, university industry and government, and they have calculated all kind of indices. And in this case, this particular, if you see the map of the developed countries like US, it's very circular. But in India, there are several sectors where you will say government, industry, and university interaction is very less. And that is the factor. Even in Korea, it is a circular in shape. That particular indices are calculated and it indicates. So in India, we would like to see that kind of situation where the government can intervene, tell under CSR. Really under CSR, the universities should get, already they have started, but it should enhance. And that is one thing. And regulatory framework should very open. Even MCI, all these agencies, they should try to change their rules. Otherwise, the universities, the autonomy is lost. Our government is trying to bring the new education policy. It has been debated, but last 7 years we couldn't see that particular policy in place. I hope that policy has taken into account what will be the future, and that things
Uh-huh.
will happen.
Okay. Mr. Chingan,
And
I was wondering, a very sort of a different kind of question. You already spoke about various sort of industries which might be hiring more and some which might take a hit. But would you like to recommend some sort of, offbeat industries? For instance, um, you know, these risk advisory companies. I believe they're doing very well. And there may be other such industries which many people may not have even heard of, but which would actually be hiring. Would you like to suggest a few such offbeat kind of industries which students could look at?
well, I mean, I think I don't know about offbeat, and I think the reality is that look, bulk of the volume numbers and economic activity will, is still going to be sort of reasonably mainstream. But I think two areas which, to my mind, would be much more relevant now is just a wide range of digital services. So today, I think with just all of what's happening around us, I see a lot more, just conversion of offline to online, and it's no longer going to be the big, fancy, well-funded unicorns only doing that. They will continue to do what they're doing, no doubt. But I think there is going to be a whole industry of just converting, offline processes to online processes. There could be anything and everything. And I think digital services will become very interesting. I think a lot of mainstream companies will need to perhaps think about different ways of going about their businesses, because something as simple as even universities today. I think the point Dr. Salunke was making, students are coming from all over the country. There may be a scenario in which maybe for a longer period of time students are unable to travel or are unwilling to travel long distances, and therefore there may be a need for them to receive some part of their education locally, where they are, in the city, in the town, perhaps even in the village that they are, and therefore, there is a whole range of, I think, perhaps more almost like just local support, local services that would come in. Businesses would need to create innovative models, partnerships, around this. And I would say that, building on the point, Mr. Yadav made, I think the government should really, really incentivize companies, businesses to innovate and maybe compulsorily hire 5, 3, 4, 5 young graduates, because we all know that a lot of this new thinking, a lot of this innovation is best done by young people who are free from perhaps the constraints of history and the constraints of status quo. And I think that is where the government can really come in and say that, look, hire people, hire youngsters, provide some funding support, some financial support, but let each one of them be part of innovation groups or hackathons which these companies organize, to really think through how they would like to respond to the changed external environment. So I think that's the second part. And then the third piece would be just overall, I see a huge need for a much broader suite of digital skills, working with data, working remotely, and both in an individual as well as in a team setting, and collaborating. I think this is the skill set imperative that everybody will need to overcome. So I think there could be three different, these could be just three examples of how we approach this in the new normal. I just have one quick comment just to build on Dr. Salunke's point on regulation. I personally feel the government and regulators need to come out and engage far more effectively with the education sector. And I'm not suggesting that there should be any change to the autonomy that has always been contemplated in the context of universities, but I'm saying there needs to be engagement. Currently, there is a little bit of involvement, but that involvement seems to be sitting on a very high pedestal and perhaps preaching to the sector. Right. Pay everybody salaries, and whatnot. I mean, we all agree that these are great initiatives, but unlike many other countries in the world where governments are actually stepping in and providing financial support, no different, very similar to what Dr. Yadav said. I think it's a great idea. If today the government were to say that we will pay the salary of every single faculty member and teacher in this country for 3 months and recover it over 12 months from a relevant institution, I think that could be an outstanding contribution to the future of our country that the government could make. So I think
Yes.
my kind of one view on that, just I wanted to add to what Dr. Salomke said. I think the government needs to be much more engaged and participative, and perhaps sit down and with the sector and try to work through some of these challenges, other than perhaps just stipulate or preach what could be done. Is just one other comment.
Great, Mr. Yadav. I saw you raising a point, but before you bring in what you were about to say, since Mr. Jingan was talking about salaries and payments and all that stuff, do you see a cut in the sort of median salaries that are being offered already by various companies, or placement companies? Do you see that happening as well?
For the current employee at the moment, or you're talking about the new employees?
In both cases, even now, people who are hiring, are they coming to you with lower salaries, or than they would normally offer simply because of this economic downturn, or are they still offering the same kind of salaries?
See, post-March, most of the recruitment is on hold at the moment. See, whatever people were recruited, selected, and if they were told to join in the month of either in the month of April or in the month of May, that is on hold at the moment. Except for the IT company, where they have been taken and virtually they work from the home. And the people who are supposed to work in the offices, those positions are on the hold. But for the current employee, most of the organization, April month, they have given almost the full salary. For the March month salary, April month salary obviously will be paid. But April month salary, I see there are certain industry where there will be a cut, and there are certain industry where there will be a full salary.
So my question was different, that when they come for placement, usually they have a sort of a median range that this industry will offer. Let's say at the IIT they come and ask that, okay, we will make offers at these rates. So do you see a cut there? That's what I'm saying. The initial placement offer, do you see a cut?
This year when they go for, there will be a cut. Anything between 10 to 20%, depending upon the type of industry. Because you will appreciate, Raman, that this year every company is left just about 9 months. Anything between 8 to 9 months they are left to operate and bring value to the shareholder. Because see, every company which operates, ultimately they are responsible to the shareholders and to the government. Both. If it is a listed company, or even if it is not a listed company, it is responsible to the shareholder. So every company will just have about 8 to 9 months to operate, and that to 8 to 9 months, if it is a manufacturing company, imagine, which are unfinished goods are lying in the factory. Raw materials are not available. Even the finished goods are lying, the logistic will take time, So virtually you will find, or most of the company which is in manufacturing, they will operate just about 6 to 7 months full-fledged, in this years, So
I believe you were trying to respond to Mr. Jingan. You were about to say something. Sorry, I interrupted that train of thought.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say, there are, there are certain industry where, the candidates should look for this year, And out that, I'll say, one is the auto industry. So far, for the last about 1.5 years, or more than 1 year, 9 months, auto industry is not doing well, But I foresee a big demand of auto industry because of the COVID-19. The COVID-19, what it has done, it will compact the capacity if somebody's a bus can take 50 people, in that they can take only 20 people. If the railway will start, instead of 67 people in the one compartment, they have to take 30 people in the compartment. In taxi, if 3 people were taken, they can take only 1 person, Many people will not like to go by the bus or the public transport. So there is a big latent demand in the auto industry. This is the one industry I would recommend, and I foresee there will be a big demand in the auto industry. The second 2 industries there. See, so far we have been Indian government. We have been spending just about 1.2% of the GDP in our for agriculture, and just about 1% we have been spending in the healthcare industry. These are the two industry which is likely to do in next 3-4 years very well, and government is going to give a lot of importance, in the health industry and also in the agriculture industry, because right now we are only eating and being idle, and if that pipe is choked, we don't know where to go. So we have understood that is extremely important. So these are two industries.
That's important point to make. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We are sort of running a bit out of time. So, Dr. Salunke, since we opened with you, I'd like to close with you, but I have a two-pronged question for you. So I would like you to address two things. One, we are talking digital. Everybody seems to be going digital, and everybody's sort of, talking about a digital education experience. But can a digital sort of higher education really replace the campus experience? That's the first question. That's the first part. And the second one is that a lot of students who would normally go abroad for studies, to foreign universities and all that stuff, are unlikely to do so simply because of fears and, restrictions. Do you see Indian universities rising to that challenge and picking up that slack?
Sorry?
So that's a two separate questions.
Regarding the first question, whatever you have said is absolutely right. We can't replace. As a traditional teacher, I'm in favor of the conventional way where we have more interaction with the students. And that Guru Shishya Parampara, whatever traditional we have, definitely there is a innovation and traditions. There is some conflict is going on, but I don't know really, but we should take few things. Now in technology also, they are trying to provide more interactions, but already I have mentioned that campus experience, how to live together. That kind of experience only will be possible when the student on campus, when they will interact more. And that is my personal opinion. We can't replace the student-teacher interaction. And whatever
student to student, also students, sitting together and discussing things.
Yeah, even the campus life, how to live in a hostel, that is also a different experience, and that's very important. And everybody is talking about cooperative learning, how they work in the group. If the students are learning in isolation, they don't know how to. See, in India, the problem is the students, they work more in isolation. They don't come together and they don't try to resolve. That is one more tendency. If you go to the US or in laboratory, you will have the students all over the world. They are working together and they will have different kind of experience. They will come out, whatever Professor Abitam, RP Adojo, they will come together with extremely new ideas. And that ideas will come only when they could come together, they talk, discuss, debate, and that kind of thing. I don't know, really, this is my expectation as a traditional teacher. I feel that kind of flavor will not be there digital. But another question, you talked about, I think it was.
I asked you whether, many students who normally go abroad, right? Students who get, admissions into universities abroad will not do so this year, or maybe the next year as well.
Yeah.
Will Indian universities be able to rise to that challenge to pick up that slack?
Yeah. See, one thing is there. Why Indian students are absorbed in abroad? Because at least the basic training is good in our educational institutes. And I am very happy. Last decade, there are several opportunities has been created by starting new IIMs, new IITs, new central universities, where they have started innovative courses, and they are trying to attract the faculty also all over the country. Even some very good faculty they have attracted, and that kind of experience they are in position to get even in our own country. It's not a problem. Only they have a mindset. Parents are rich, and most of them, they would like to spend the money and they would like to go. But that kind of experience is possible even in our country. This is my own perception, because I have stayed in Vienna, even in USA and all other countries. I think whatever teaching system we have in IITs, central universities, particularly the unitary universities, there may be some problems associated with affiliating universities, but definitely we have very good unitary university, and definitely they will fulfill the aspirations of the parents as well as
Wonderful.
students.
On that, very sort of an optimistic kind of a note. I'm very sorry. I wish we could have continued this discussion for a far longer time. But I think we've had a very, very stimulating discussion so far. And I would really like to have all of you back again someday on board, take this conversation further. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for a really, really, stimulating conversation. And I look forward to meeting each one of you individually someday soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Ramnath.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.